Once again from the Worship Center of Bennington Pentecostal Church, where our friend Mark Williams is the pastor. This is a very special interview with 100 Huntley Street. We're coming to you from Calgary, Alberta, and we are featuring Albertans these days who are experiencing the life change of Jesus Christ, who are influencers, people who are making a difference, whether it's in the arena of education or sports or business or the church or whatever it may be that God has called them to do. I'm so glad that we have the opportunity now to meet a business entrepreneur. His name is Troy Walker. Would you please all here welcome your fellow citizen, fellow Albertan, Troy Walker. Troy, you have been really blessed of God in business, and there's an amazing, compelling story. You own and run more than a dozen companies, Walker's Holdings. Your wife, Paul, is with us in the audience. We're thrilled to have you here. So let's start. You were born where?
I was born right in Red Deer, Alberta. Born and raised, and I'll die there too. I love the town. I love Alberta. I love this province. I love our country. Yes. Yeah.
Let's talk about the childhood.
Yeah.
Let's begin with what it was like and some things that led up, I think, to you when you were 6 years old, and some things were said about you that had a profound impact on how the next 10 years or so of your life would be lived.
Well, the Bible actually talks how God will take the foolish and confound the wise. Yeah. And I'm one of those things. Really, honestly, I'm really not that special. But God has done such amazing things. And I'm so blessed and so thankful. And I wrote down a couple things I didn't want to miss, but I don't deserve the blessing of God. I don't deserve what He's done for me. And there's a friend of mine named Tommy Walker. I don't know if you ever heard of Tommy Walker, fantastic worship leader, writing wonderful music. But he's like, what a good God You've been to me. You provided so far beyond all of my dreams. And it's just amazing. I look back and how God can take someone that's so broken and almost worthless and just see what God can do with a surrendered life. So I have, we talk about this later, but I have a wife of 25 years. I have 3 wonderful children serving God, and several successful companies, and the Lord's given me multi-million-dollar ideas and innovations that have actually changed industry and have gone global. It just blows me away what God will do with a surrendered life. Right. But it sure didn't start that way.
So let me ask you, you're 6 years old and your mother and father are they in an argument?
Yeah.
What happened? Take us there.
The scripture says there's death and life are in the power of the tongue, and we got to really watch what we say, because, we can speak life to people or we can speak death to people. And this was a circumstance, and I don't hold it against my parents or anything at all, because, I grew up, I'm the youngest of 6 children, and we had a pretty wild upbringing. My parents, my dad worked 3 jobs, and my mom worked full-time, and, wow. Just to keep milk in the fridge, and so we were pretty wild children, and we kind of did get in ourselves into a lot of trouble. And it wasn't because there wasn't love there, it's just that my parents had to go and work to provide for us. And so, the years, my early years, there was pretty tough times. We didn't know the Lord. We didn't know what it was like. I didn't know anything about God, and because I had never heard the gospel. And and there was no church in our house at all. So I remember this one night, it was late, and my mom and my dad were having a fight, and I remember waking up, and I was the youngest kid. I was about 6 years old, and so I came out, and I got out of my bed, and I was hiding behind the wall so that they couldn't see me. But I remember my mom, in tears, saying to my dad, all the things that were terrible and hardships in their lives. And I remember her saying, how my oldest brothers were always getting in trouble, always fighting and in trouble at school. And my sisters were running away and just filled with rebellion. And when I was younger in school, I suffered from dyslexia. Yeah, I still do. But back then they didn't really know what that was.
Couldn't recognize it or
No, they just kind of shuffle you off, and yeah, exactly. So, but anyhow, I really struggled. Like, it was at the end of grade 2, and I still didn't know the alphabet. I couldn't read a clock on the wall just because my mind wouldn't process it properly, and I didn't know. I just knew that I was struggling. But anyhow, in this heated argument with my mom and my dad fighting, she went through the list of things that were terrible in her life, and then she says, and then I have a son who is dumb. I kind of, I took a step back. I didn't actually even really cry or nothing like that. I just had tears roll down my face, but I thought, both my parents both had a job at Michener Center, which they took care of handicapped children. And so I thought to myself, well, I guess I just must be like handicapped just like them. And so I went back to bed, and I just thought, I guess, I accepted these words that were spoken over my life. And I'll tell you, from that moment on, no matter how hard I tried in school, I could never attain more than a 50%. And so it was just like, it didn't matter what, I could study all around the clock and still never get more than a 50%.
Troy, you interpret that as you got a little older and defined it looking back now. You saw that almost as a curse.
Absolutely.
A curse in your life.
You know what? It was something that I even accepted. The people say things about you, but then when you accept them, then it becomes a part of you. And there's many things that have to be reversed. And later in the story, you're going to hear how that happened.
So you as a little child, started buying into the lie.
Oh, I did, full-fledged.
And that took you down a path of great pain and suffering.
Yeah, it was pretty rough. Because I didn't do well in school, I started acting out, and again, to divert the attention that I wasn't able to read like everyone else. And so I got myself into a lot of trouble, and I kind of went down a path of, getting involved with some bad people. I often say this: you show me your friends and I will show you your future. And I got involved with some bad friends. And so I started using drugs when I was 8 years old. And
what kind of drugs were you using?
Just smoking pot, oil, stuff that you'd buy on the streets. But by the time I was 12 years old, I was already into the chemicals like acid. And back in the day, that was the drug of the time. And you know what? It was just a lost soul. But I had no hope. I remember actually when I was 14 years old, and I was sitting in a chair. It was at a party that we were at, and I was thinking to myself, what are my goals in life? And then I realized what my goal was. My goal was to live to 20.
You were 14?
I was 14.
So your goal was just to make it to 20, 6 years.
If I could make it to 20, I thought then I've really made it a full life. But I actually, with the lifestyle I was living, even that was a stretch. It was a goal. It wasn't something I thought I'd maybe make it to 17, 18, but I thought if I could do it to 20, then I truly, lived my full life. And yeah, that's a little different world, that's for sure.
So you're in that darkness, and you've been deceived.
Yep.
And you are experimenting, and everything's going wrong.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy times and dark. It was very, very dark.
Troy, was there a pivotal moment, a pivotal relationship, a scene, a place where things begin to turn around?
Yeah, it was pretty ironic because we had a band, and I played rock band, and I did do quite good in that area. We were starting to excel, and we experienced these guys. Well, first of all, my brother and my mother both gave their hearts to the Lord, and they started praying for us. And
this would be older brother.
Yeah, my oldest brother.
And your mother.
And my mother
came to faith in Christ.
Yeah, it was powerful. And you know what? They were kind of oddballs, but so was I. So I thought, you know what? We didn't mind these guys because we were outcasts, because we were rebellious, we were in trouble, we were always, and so were they, kind of. So I remember, and this is just powerful, because we have a jamming room or a practice room we'd have, and always drugs, alcohol, demonic stuff all over the place, and really, demonically inspired paintings that we did, and just like that we didn't even know what we didn't know, but we did experience kind of spooky stuff happen. So we did understand there was a spiritual realm, but the dark side is the side that we knew. Yeah. But here these Christians come walking into this room. This is so powerful. They'd walk in straight through a cloud of dope smoke. And
are you in a studio?
Yeah, well, yeah, practice room.
Practice room,
like
yeah.
Studio, they walk in and they have this stupid smile on their face. And I just thought to myself, you guys, I have to spend $50 a day to get that same smile on my face. And I got a headache the next day and you guys are just still smiling. So I kind of, they just had a joy, you know? And I was like...
And it was irritating.
Yeah, it was irritating because I thought they do that for free. But anyhow, they would come in and start telling us about Jesus. And I had never heard the words. I'd never heard the Bible stories. And yet these guys would come in and they would start and they would say, the Lord spoke to me about you. And I was like, the Lord spoke to you? And they're like, yeah, and this is what he said. And man, I'll tell you, they started speaking right into our lives, stuff that no one knew. And I was like, wow. So our first experience with Christians where, these guys they were powerful guys, but they were courageous too, because I used to have my Black Sabbath album on when they'd come in the room and I'd stop the album with my finger and start spinning it backwards, trying to scare them off.
The old masking, yeah.
Because I heard about that. So I
give it a try.
Backwards. And they didn't scare them off. They didn't scare off. No, it was, so they started praying for us, and slowly but surely we started coming to these Bible studies that they'd have. And I remember we'd go to, because we'd have a party later on that night, and I thought, well, we said we'd come, let's go. And I hear this story about like Jonah and the whale. I was just like, are you kidding me? This whale actually swallowed this fella. And anyhow, we'd leave the Bible study, and then we had to go straight to the party, of course. And we were quite popular because we had the band and stuff. But I remember walking straight into the party. Everyone's saying hi. It was great to see everyone cranking the AC/DC on. And then I just pressed the pause button on the stereo, jump up on the table, and tell them this amazing story about Jonah. I was like, guys, you have to hear this story about this Jonah.
So suddenly you're an evangelist.
Well, I didn't know that. I didn't even know what an evangelist was. I just wanted to tell them the story about this.
It's a great story.
This guy running from God and gets swallowed. Anyhow, I jump on a table and everyone hears the story, and of course they lift their beers and say, hey, and then they crank the music back up and away they went.
Yeah.
But, slowly but surely, God started working on us. And, I was looking at the Christians and I was saying, I wonder if they're going to judge me. Because, that's when I had long hair. And I used to go to church and we'd kind of come late and leave early because we really wanted to be there, but didn't really want to be judged, or condemned or something, but I don't know. So we would come, and I thought to myself, I'm just going to wait for someone to come and judge me. So then I'd have an excuse to not come. Yeah. But they never did. They never judged me. They just said, hey, Troy, we know you got stuff in your life, and I had lots of stuff in my life. And they said, just keep coming closer to God, and like the leaves in the fall, they'll just fall off. Those things that God doesn't want, they'll just fall off of your life. And sure enough, that's what happened.
That's a beautiful image.
It was just powerful. And you know what? Those Christians, they did a good job. They did it. I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful. And then I became one. It was very powerful.
And life has truly never been the same since.
You know what? No, it was amazing. When I first got saved and my marks in school, because I was just the last into school. Of course, I was a little bit delayed in school, but mostly they passed me through school to get me out of school because they didn't want me there.
They know what to do.
And I don't blame them, But anyhow, so it was the last part of my school, and my marks instantly went up 30%. And something happened. Like when I actually asked God to come into my life, I said, Lord, I don't know if I can be a Christian. I was being real honest. I was like, I'm a sinner, I grew up in sin since I was very, very, very young.
Yeah.
And I don't think I can be a Christian. But can you help me be a Christian? Can you help me? And I pray that prayer every day. That's 28 years ago.
And he specializes in helping people just like you.
Oh, it was so powerful. I'm telling you, the transformation. And then, you know what? When I actually got baptized, it was so powerful because when I came out of that water, something changed in my life.
Yeah.
And the old guy, he died.
Dead to sin.
He died. He was gone.
Yeah.
And guess what? I was 20 years old.
20 years old.
Yep. So I did achieve my goal.
You did.
Yeah. I died at 20 and
right.
became a new man, a new creature, and God started changing my life.
Troy, what a blessing you are. Come back and see us soon, would you?
God bless you.
God bless you.
Awesome, man.
Troy, God bless you.